Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Rip Studio show. And my name is Krista Goon. So you've heard about collaboration all the time. So if you're in business, competition is really out and outdated. So collaboration is in. And if you're curious about how collaboration can help your business, stay tuned because today we will be talking about collaboration with Jay Sharma from Cloud Spotter Consultancy. He is a change consultant. And he has had immense experience in the public and private sectors. And he is a former lawyer and a former executive director of a well-known NGO in Malaysia. So before we bring Jay on, I just want to let everyone know that if you are watching this, I hope that you will stay till the end because I have an important resource that I'll be very happy to share with you all about collaboration and all about how you can really put it into practice because this is a fantastic document that not only outlines a lot of the things that we'll be talking about today, but also some important things like checklists and recommendations and all the good stuff that you need in order to get started and to embark on collaboration. So this is key, right? Because you want to know how to get started. So today's conversation is not just talking about theory, not just talking about stuff that is nice to know, but we want you to really get started and do some of this collaboration on your own. So now, without much further ado, let me bring on Jay. Hi, Jay. Oh, your mic is muted.
I was being respectful. Hello, good evening.
Good evening. And so, Jay, I gave a brief introduction about you, but would you like to add on to that?
Well, I think you very kindly said that I had experience in the public and private sectors. The extent of my experience in the private sector is rather limited. Most of my experience has been in NGOs or the charity sector. And also in the public sector. And most of that experience has been in the UK. But obviously I now live in Penang, so I've picked up some flavor of the local scene and some understanding. I mean, I was born in Penang, so I have an understanding about the ecosystem here. So I look forward to an interesting conversation.
Yes, and me too, because we've been talking prior to this live session, and we have been talking a lot about collaboration. And yes, as I sent the event out to some of my friends, I told them even this session itself is a collaboration because I'm collaborating with you and we're bringing together our respective knowledge and coming together to share something that both of us know about. So the title today is Why Collaborate? And I'm sure lots of people, maybe not lots of people, but maybe people have heard the term collaboration. Perhaps we'll start with defining what it is and understanding it before we even get to the questions. Shall we talk about the basics? Yeah,
I think that would be a good idea. It's actually quite difficult to pin down because it's not a thing; it's a journey, it's a process. So collaboration in its simplest form is kind of working together, but it's a bit more than that, right? So it's working together for what? And what's the difference between collaboration and cooperation? I mean, I think that's one of the things to unpick. Cooperation, I think, in my view, is about an attitude that you are cooperative. You don't put stumbling blocks in somebody else's way, or it's an attitude of helping another or assisting or simply getting out of the way, and that's being cooperative. To collaborate requires much more action. It's to be invested in terms of time, resources, attention, and intention. So it's worth just bearing in mind. I mean, this is the way that we try to unpick ideas or concepts, isn't it? We go back to the root word. And so it comes from the Latin. There are two words, con or com, and lavore or labore, which is to work, it's the labor, but it's with. So it's a conjunction of these two things. It's with labor. So it's a doing word rather than just a being word. I have a cooperative attitude, but I collaborate with you, Krista Goon, in order to bring this to our friends. Yeah. So I think that's a crucial difference for me.
Yeah.
I hope that's helpful.
Yeah. So it's always good to know that even if we start with the word and the definition, I feel that the word collaborate has a lot of optimism in it.
Very good. Yeah, I agree.
Because you can't collaborate without optimism and enthusiasm. But of course, enthusiasm is much later. But you have to have this positive belief that
Yes.
you're doing something together.
Yes.
And hopefully for the greater good.
It is like a joint enterprise, but there you're getting within the realms of greater definitions about the nature of that relationship, the nature of the collaborative relationship. So it's on a spectrum, isn't it? You can be cooperative without being invested in each other's business, if you like. Yeah. But when you collaborate, you want mutual benefit, you want mutual success. And so I think that is a crucial difference. And so I like how you put it, that sense of optimism, because if you didn't think that you can succeed in the collaborative effort, then you wouldn't start, probably. Yeah. But it's about moving along together.
And that is what we're going to talk about today, moving along together.
Yes.
So in your work, okay, what kinds of collaboration have you seen?
I've dealt with social collaboration mostly, by which I mean that there is usually a state authority, whether it's a municipal council or some other public body, that needs to bring different people together to solve complex social problems. And these social problems are not such that there is a magic wand or a button. Is there ever one? And looking at the context in which we live, with the pandemic, and how it's impacting on small businesses, particularly, even people in employment. I mean, it's never mind the businesses. I think there is a great need for collaborative attitudes, thinking in terms of the long term, in terms of community resilience, in order to come together to think of a post-pandemic scenario. Because individually, we can all be, I mean, the story of you put a bunch of sticks together and it's very hard to break. Yeah. So it's about that. So it's about creating the strength, even within businesses. And if we think that we are all atomized as individual solopreneurs or small businesses, and if we feel that the only way to survive is a dog-eat-dog world, where you undercut each other in terms of price or whatever, I think this is not a sustainable solution. Yes, some may succeed, but many won't. So collaboration focuses our minds on thinking beyond that immediate thing into creating a more equitable ecosystem, because society is actually made up of a lot of consumers. So you can only have sustainable customers and consumers of your products when the society itself is stable and thriving. Yeah. So it's just kind of casting the net a little bit wider to think the context in which businesses operate. Does that help?
Yeah. In your own way, what kinds of collaborations, collaboration examples can you give? Because I think of it from the business point of view. I think
Sure.
that for businesses, it's really natural, unless that business owner doesn't like collaboration or is not optimistic at all about collaboration. But most businesses I know, and because I'm with a bunch of women entrepreneurs, we're all very excited. And women's natures, I think we're more collaborative in that sense. We love working together with each other. We love doing things together. So I understand it from a woman's perspective, and also from a business perspective. It really makes a lot of sense. But in your own work, how have you seen that play out? I mean, what kinds of organizations are really doing this together? Because I can talk from my business point of view, but maybe you have a different way of looking at it.
Well, I'll give you one example of a project that I was a consultant on quite a while ago. I mean, it's certainly more than a decade ago, but it was quite successful. It was quite groundbreaking for its time. So there was a community center, which is provided by the local authorities, a community space. It had some rooms and it had some kind of infrastructure, power and lighting, and it had a kind of kitchen and all that. It wasn't particularly well used, and there was a kitchen there which ran a kind of very basic food and beverage kind of service, but the people there kind of wanted to quit. They wanted to retire, and so there came an opportunity to completely rethink the nature of what that community center could provide as actually being a magnet to some underserved populations. Round about the same time, there was an African women's group that served isolated women, isolated because they might have had mental health problems. Many of them were refugees. And so displacement, and they were kind of isolated away from their families, their own communities, and so on. Many of them might be young or new mothers. And so that provided a reason for them to become a little bit sort of isolated, from the community. And then there were the elders who kind of knew the ropes, but perhaps were not taken seriously as being able to do very much. So they provided support services for many of these young women. What we did was to create an opportunity where these women took control of that kitchen, let's say, and provided meals, of course. So it became a magnet for this particular group to come and use. And in order to be inclusive, there were others, and they provided the full range. It wasn't just African meals, let's say. They also provided the kind of the basics. And immediately, the number of people participating in this community center's life grew. And it grew quite successfully to the extent where we then expanded it into a food delivery service for people who are housebound for multiple reasons. So healthy meals cooked on the premises from scratch and then delivered. So for the delivery, we used a youth project and a bicycle club that was based at the community center, where they were teaching young people about bicycle maintenance and that kind of thing. It was, everybody was riding about with these kind of like either it's mountain bikes or these kind of bikes that young people kind of rode, but they didn't necessarily know how to maintain it. So there was a bicycle club that was there. So this was something very practical to attract the youth there. And then we said, okay, would you do food deliveries to this thing? And we incentivized it by paying them some money. Now, much of this funding came from the local authority and the health service that wanted to ensure that nutritious food was being sent over and the people were being contacted, not necessarily by health workers, which became a very expensive resource, but by the community itself. So it kind of created this kind of community cohesion within that. And then the credit union people kind of came in for low-level microfinance things so that they could expand their project. So it served more people. So this was kind of a very successful, I think, idea of collaboration between the local authority, the community center, a charitable mental health for women group, a youth project which looked at bicycles. So all these people came together to make it into a very successful project that lots of people benefited from. So that's the nature of the collaboration. So it's kind of defining the needs from the point of view of the beneficiaries rather than from the supplier side. From the supplier side, somebody could have just said, oh, we have a kitchen area. If you want to use it, yeah, these are the terms and conditions that you can hire it and so on. But we transformed just a transactional relationship into a transformational one by including the people who were actually going to, if you want to think in business terms, kind of create and expand that particular market. So that's an example.
Yeah, so that's a great example, because to me that is actually multi-party. It's not just between two people, right? Because normally when we think of collaboration, it's just like one person and the other person, or one business and another business, or the most three, right? But yours is really bringing together the different groups, different types of people.
Yes, absolutely. One thing I forgot, which I think is also kind of relevant here, very close to where that community center was a community garden where people with isolation, mental health difficulties came to a gardening club. And one of the things that they did was grow vegetables. And there was enough so that they could sell, they could sell it just there, not in the market or something. They would just kind of runner beans or tomatoes or whatever, and people would buy, but you had to make a special trip. But we used the kitchen to buy directly from them. So they had a steady market, if you like. So it was a kind of like creating a circular economy, if you see what I mean. Yeah. So it was good it increased the self-confidence of the people who were working in the garden, the community garden, because they said, hey, somebody's actually going to buy this and use it, and we get some money out of it, and we can buy whatever, more plants and, improve
more
our
seeds.
Greenhouse and absolutely all that kind of thing. So it becomes quite an interesting way in which local communities come together and create that ecosystem. Sorry. I was quite happy. I'm quite proud of this little project.
So then I want to know, is this project replicable elsewhere? Because the whole idea of having a collaborative effort like this between multi-parties is, yes, the one that works is in this specific place, but can it be like replicated in another country with another different kind of culture or cultural systems or beliefs? Can it be done?
Well, I think that is a very insightful question, and that's exactly the right question to ask. Yeah, there are two things, I suppose, that people look at. One is scalability, and the other is replicability. And I think your question, which you asked, is about replicability. And
Yes.
I would certainly say yes, in the sense that I'm working on something now for a city in East Africa, and we are ideating and in discussions with the authorities. And this is about unregulated street vendors. Yeah, they sell local foods to busy people going to work, or low cost, very, very much like we experience in Penang, that kind of thing. The problem is that they are not regulated. And once in a while, the municipal council will get agitated by the number of, and they will come and raid them and fine them and all this kind of thing. Now, what we're trying to do is instead of just looking at a change in the regulations, because there are reasons why you need to regulate this, is to work with the private sector to identify a plot of land or some space where these people can actually congregate. So it's a kind of replication of something like a hawker center in this part of the world, right? So it's very much like that. And what does the private sector owner or the owner of the land get out of it? Well, I mean, you can imagine the benefits. You know, they provide some facilities, they can charge rent. That becomes regulated. We are also trying to get e-payments accepted. That's another kind of idea, so that people can pay with the QR code and the mobile phones, that sort of thing, which kind of like incentivizes and increases and also gives them a cash flow in order to source the raw ingredients from rural areas where the street vendors don't have the capital to buy in advance. So when they run out of food, they run out of food. But using a variety of imaginative ways, microcredit schemes together with the mobile payment incentive can unlock some financing in order for sustainable practices. And of course, this is not one individual vendor. This is a group of, maybe 40, 50 street vendors. And we're hoping that this was. So in terms of the replication, it is not exactly as I said. It's not like a community center, but conceptually, it is about a space and making use of that space to do a number of different things, bringing in a number of different actors in order to improve the ecosystem it's a commercial space. I mean, you buy and sell food, right? So It's that kind of thing.
Yeah. Okay, so now we want to welcome those who have just joined us. Some people come in and out, so welcome to all of you who have just joined us. Let's see, a couple of friends here. We have Tammy, Mei Ching, Uncle Ko Hock Hui is a client of mine, Uncle Ko, and of course Mike. So I'm going to pull up Mike's comment. He says, "We do something similar with a group of rural intellectually disabled, but we respect this is a long way from the usual business environment that we deal with on a daily basis." And how have you overcome? Overcome this? Is it? I know it's not as. Sometimes people think that it's very easy, right? Just to collaborate. I mean, for myself and Jay, I mean, getting on this live stream is easy because we've known each other. We can talk, right? And we have ideas to share. But maybe for certain types of collaboration, it may not be that quick to implement. So I would also like to hear from Mike, it's a long way from the usual business environment. Yes. What are some of the challenges? I mean, sometimes that is also because a lot of businesses really want to help the community, but we just don't know how. And so the two examples that you've given us, Jay, I mean, it's good for them to think, okay, so this is how it works in some other part of the world. But can it be done here? Or how can I do it here? Using my local resources, using availability of space, or even with the constraints that I have. So I'll be very happy to hear what Mike has to say. And thanks, Mike, for joining, because Mike has always, left some really interesting, insightful comments. So we'll wait for him. So if you just joined us, welcome. We're talking about collaboration, and not just business collaboration, even though, of course, that is what most people think is business collaboration is the key thing. But what Jay is talking about is more than just business collaboration. You're talking about an entire ecosystem of people and players and groups that are coming in to put together their efforts to create something that is sustainable, something that's bigger, something that's also economically more viable. So if someone wants to do that, for instance, if I'm a business owner and I say, Jay, that's a great idea. How do I get started? Who do I talk to first? I mean, it's like so many parties, right? It's a multi-party discussion, conversation.
Yes, of course. I think that requires perhaps what one could call leadership. in the sense that the leader or the person who exhibits leadership qualities has to have some kind of overview or a vision of where this could lead, and conceptualize the whole project, if you want to call it that, the collaboration project, as an ecosystem, and then try to find the players. I mean, as an individual, so taking the example of this East African city where I'm trying to do this, the individual seller of fried bananas, or what I think they call it Rolex, which is a kind of like, it's like a chapati, but with the, roll. Anyway, it's a roll. These are kinds of street foods. You can't expect the person at the bottom of the ecosystem, if you like, who is on subsistence pay and in terms of subsistence level living, to suddenly kind of imagine this broader ecosystem emerging and then find collaborators. It does require somebody or some organization rather to play a catalytic role. So I do appreciate that what Mike is saying, that very often if the underlying ideology, if you want to call it that, is that it's a dog-eat-dog world and we have to compete in order to it is difficult, but I think even in those circumstances it's important to ask, well, what is stopping you from being more efficient or more productive or being more profitable? And very often in this time of immense change, I think it's very often skills shortages. So I think, Krista, you and I were having a conversation about mom and pop shops, which are very vulnerable, which provide a very valuable service to the community in these parts, in Penang, for example. Yeah, they've been there for a long time. The owners may be the proverbial mom and pop who've been there for 40, 50 years, and they sell, it's a sundry shop, they sell a load of things. They are not online, and they may or may not do home delivery. Some of them do, but it could be, farmed out. But if it was done in a much more systematic way, this is an opportunity, I think, for perhaps young people who are very tech savvy to kind of say, hey, uncle, auntie, can we do an app for you? And they might find 50 other mom and pop shops and create an ecosystem whereby if you want to shop local, you use the app and you create an entire system whereby you can place the order and the person will actually have human contact rather than expect the mom and pop shop people to take the order and process the order and so on. So it needs an intermediary. So these people can become social catalysts and they can make some money out of it. But I mean, people charge money for delivery, don't they? So yeah. It depends on a kind of a collaboration within society to understand what it is that we value and what is the added value of having those mom and pop shops. And if people want that, if people feel that having locally run independent businesses, it doesn't have to be a mom and pop shop, it can be any number of, Penang is full of independent shop owners, right? And I'm sure Malaysia as a whole is. What are we doing? It's the solution is not simply to throw money at them. I mean, of course they would welcome it, but it's to be much more creative with what you can do. And Malaysians, as far as I've seen, can be very, in a private sense, very generous. During the time of we're still in the middle of the pandemic, when with severe lockdown. I mean, there were all sorts of initiatives to distribute food, that kind of bandera putih and all sorts of things like that. People were giving,
and also
willingly,
supporting,
freely, exactly,
and supporting by buying food.
Precisely. So it's just thinking out of the red box, if you see what I mean.
Good one there. So that is also, which also brings us to this idea, right? That are there some businesses that can benefit from this kind of help? They may not have the technology. They may not even know that the technology exists. But can another group of people who already know the technology, but without maybe the business side of business skills, right? The business side of things, but they know how this technology, know how to put this app together so that they can enable other people, the public, the customers, the people who want to buy from these mom and pop shops to really get what they want. And especially if the mom and pop shops are providing some really, really unique stuff, not just something that is commercial or, well, made in China and things like that. So something that's really maybe even handicrafts or handcrafted items. And yeah, to me, that would really be something that brings back the heritage and the love of local stuff.
Yes, yes. I think it is not up to the technologists, if you like, to kind of define the products. The products are there already. We know this. It is just to harness the ability of the market to become a marketplace, a one-stop, if you like, by which you can mediate between the two, because certainly those small producers need a bit of help. And if somebody in a position of authority, I mean, we have in Malaysia, there are numerous examples of how the state, by which I mean either federal government or state government, even municipal government, are supporting things like that. There is such a thing as Digital Penang, for example, and there are co-working spaces with a lot of tech people involved in creating new things. Now, just creating those things is not an end in itself. Yeah. That's just kind of, it ends up as, I don't know, TikTok
White
or something.
elephants.
I mean, pardon me?
White elephants.
Yeah. Well, yes. I'll just kind of come back to that particular point in a second. But if somebody can, especially young people who want to start off some kind of tech business, can come together and say, hey, let's do this, let's create something called mom and pop shop, or there was something called otukadai, right? Otukadai is an old Tamil word, I think, meaning a shop that is a little shop that is attached to a wall or something. It leans on a wall to this kind of concept. Now so these things are actually kind of quite native to us to some extent, yeah. And if you're friendly enough with one of those mom and pop shop type places, I mean, I was talking to somebody just the other day about this, they would come and deliver the things for you. You just want like a kilo of rice and a few eggs and, this kind of thing. They will come because you're a regular customer. So that's the kind of thing that can actually translate reasonably well to the use of technology. But it needs intermediaries, I think. And the state can play a very enabling role in this. Yeah. So this, as a first startup venture, it would be I suggest, a wonderful business opportunity for particularly, I think, kind of young people getting into this kind of thing. Don't compete with the big boys and big girls, in the tech world, right? But actually do something that is meaningful for your community and your society. I think that's so. I just want to end on this. In terms of looking at innovation, I have this kind of, my favorite example is one is called Jugaad. It's a Hindi word, Jugaad. I mean, in Cyrillic, or English language alphabet, yeah. Jugaad innovation.
Okay.
And in contrast to Jugaad, you have Chindugu, which is a Japanese concept. So let me start with Jugaad. Jugaad is kind of like make, do, and mend, or some would say, if you're in business school, it is agile. You work around. You don't try to tackle the inherent structural weaknesses of the barrier, but you find solutions to work around it. Yeah, it's using resource availability. It's also called frugal innovation. It is not resource rich. You lose a leg on a table doesn't mean you throw the whole table away. You just get the hockey stick and you prop it up and you use that. I'm just giving a silly example there, right? So that is kind of, and you still get, and there was a young girl, a 14-year-old girl, just as an example, who invented this bicycle-powered washing machine for use in the village, which didn't have electricity or infrequent electricity. So you can just imagine it. Yeah. So it's basically a drum, and then it's powered by the bicycle, like a bicycle belt. Yeah. So this worked perfectly well, and it is a solution, and it frees up a lot of, who does the washing in most kind of rural villages and all that? It's the women, right? So it's socially transformative in that sense. So that is Jugaad. Chindugu, which is CHINDOGU, I think is a kind of like, it's a fun concept. It's a conundrum, if you like. It is the idea is that it's a challenge to produce something for which arguably there is a need, but actually it's a bit of a nonsense thing. It's a novelty, if you like. It's a kind of like, it's a.
Is it frivolous?
It is frivolous. Yes, exactly that.
Okay.
Exactly.
It's a frivolous conundrum.
Yes, exactly. It's like, it's a solution to a problem you never knew you had. Yeah.
Is that the correct spelling?
I think that's right. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
And there are rules as to what constitutes a Chindugu. It has to work. It has to, I don't know. I can't remember the 6 or 7 rules. And I think that in terms of innovation, socially responsible innovation has to follow the Jugaad approach rather than the Chindugu, because in this world we live in today, there are far too many products, there are far too many things that are called innovation. And I really will end with this. Innovation is something that you only know in retrospect. You can't say, today I'm going to be innovative, right? Because you will. Or
today I'm going to innovate.
Yes, indeed.
Today I'm going to
innovate. You can have the intention to, but you need to identify really what is the problem, yeah, and then what can you do in a most meaningful way that is sustainable, which will catch on in the market, and that becomes innovation. Innovation is always viewed through the rear view mirror. I mean, it's not right in front of you. So I think it's a very healthy attitude for us to change our mindset to thinking in the long term. And for that, collaboration. Sorry, one more. This, I really will end with this. African proverb has just come to my mind. If you want to go far, walk alone. I mean, a lot of people would have heard this. If you want to go far, walk alone. I'm sorry, if you want to go fast, I completely messed it up. If you want to go fast, walk alone. If you want to go far, walk together. I think that makes sense. If you want to go fast, walk alone. If you want to go far, walk together. So our challenge is to find ways in which to think long term. We want to go far.
Okay.
Okay, so thank you. Sorry,
we do have 2 questions. We do have 2 questions. So thank you, Charmaine, and thank you, Mei-Ching. We'll get to your questions. Okay, so let me just pull up Charmaine's question. Okay, her question is, I just started a small business tech solution enterprise for SMEs. One of my issues facing is the mindset. I tried to approach a few. They seem not really interested. I'm also doing my best to enhance our enterprise quality. Any advice on this? Okay, so we have Jay, our change consultant from Cloud Spotter. Would you like to do this, or how would you like to, or would you like to take the next question, and we'll see how many things that we want to do. Oh, okay, yes. Good one. Thank you for reminding me. Before that, Charmaine, give me a couple of seconds. We will get back to you. We will just go through I forgot. Thank you. So back to Mike's comment, because I asked him to leave a comment, he says, on our side, our first challenge was meaningful capacity development. Once done, and this group had the required skills. Next challenge was turning these skills into a viable business. The business has now been viable for 10 years. and it's totally sustainable. I'm doing the same with a group of women in Ghana for early days at the moment. Wow, that's fantastic.
Bravo. Yeah.
Bravo, Mike. That is fantastic. Wow. Okay. So
Mike should get in touch with me. We can exchange notes.
yes,
And
yes.
I'm happy to collaborate.
Yes,
but
definitely.
I think Mike's comment there is also related to Charmaine's, but I will pause there to leave it to you, Krista, to.
Okay. Can we also showcase the other questions? So maybe we'll see whether both can be.
I think Mei Ching's question is also related.
Yeah. So Mei Ching asks, how do we collaborate with people who are not cooperative? Good one.
So it is a gap in attitude capacity, maybe, right? So if you want to talk in terms of capacity building, it requires kind of persuasion. It requires, I mean, I just put down some, just before we started, a few: leadership, communication, trust, and mutuality. I'll just repeat that. Leadership, somebody with a vision to say what the whole thing is for and why it's beneficial. Communication, it's what you do so well, Krista, is to explain the reasons why in a way that makes sense to the listener, right?
Thank you for saying
that. Pleasure. It's true. Trust is what you build. Trust is not something that you go to a shop, whether it's, a mom and pop shop or you know what I mean. Although there are product standards which are there to build the trust, yeah. But trust in relationships, that you've got my back, I've got your back. I'll help you today because I know that you'll help me tomorrow. It's tilling the garden together so that our harvest may be rich and profuse, right? And the final thing is mutuality, which is a combination of an equitable distribution of the products of our collaboration. Yeah. Now, I'm not bringing in things like joint venture, business partnerships, company takeover. Let's leave that to one side. Let's just focus on, at the most granular level, things which most affect solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, startups, small businesses. Yeah. So this is the kind of thing. We can't put the burden on the people who are struggling the most and say, you'll have to, even teach a person to fish is perhaps stops short of, they may not have a net or a fishing rod or a boat or something. Yeah. So that there is a gap. So it's a glib thing to say, oh, teach a man to fish, yeah, the knowledge has to be translatable into some kind of action. And I think that, so Mike's point about the challenge was about capacity building. And capacity is also about having the resources to enable the players, the actors, to convert what they have learned into meaningful action. Charmaine says one of the issues is that they're not really interested. Okay, well, it could be that these are the wrong people that you're talking to or whatever, or perhaps if you think they are the right people, it requires another kind of start gently. Collaboration is not that you have to hitch each other's fate to the other, right? It's about, like, can we do something for mutual benefit, and then how do we, I think Mei Ching's point kind of just reinforces that. People who are not cooperative. So again, my response would be, well, maybe don't, collaborate with them, or it's a matter of persuasion, or perhaps your approach to what it is that you want to collaborate on requires re-examination. It's not about right or wrong. It's not about right or wrong, but it's just finding that sweet spot of what the other person has to offer and what you have to offer.
Perhaps I can add to that too. For instance, right? I think at the basis of any collaboration, whether we're talking about something small or even something like major, is shared values. If we don't believe in the same thing, if you believed in something else and I believed in something else, and we say, hey, Jay, let's collaborate. At the end of the day, we'll both frustrate each other because we're not really looking at the same direction. We don't believe in the same kinds of outcomes, or even if there's any outcome, if we can manage to work together. So shared values is key. And perhaps also that to me, because I have done my share of collaborations with people. So this is a collaboration. I always mention this is a collaboration. But there are also other collaborations which I failed terribly at. Because in the early days of me wanting to collaborate with that person, so I'm going like an eager puppy, like, hey, let's do this together. The other side will be, yes, let's do it together. Because our intentions were just all about ourselves. We just wanted it for ourselves, right? It's really not about a mutual outcome. So that person wanted that for herself, and I wanted this for myself. So we had no shared values. We were just selfishly looking at something in that horizon that we wanted. And that's why it didn't work. And so we really got down to discussing the nitty-gritty, like how we're going to do this, how we're going to share the resources or the costs of this particular collaboration. It just fell apart. So I have had my share of things like that. And after many of this, I asked myself, so what was that? What was that formula that could make it work? And that formula is really to start by examining, do I want to work with this person and have this person be in my face all the time? Because you have to work together. You have to talk to the person most of the time, and you have to meet with that person.
Yes.
Do we share the same values? If that person doesn't share that same value with you, it's going to be really hard 5 months down the road, 1 year down the road, right? You're just going to hate each other's guts. So you might as well decide from the very beginning. And that, to me, I think the best way to do that is just to have a conversation. Like, hey, what do you believe? What are you doing? How do you do it? Do you think that this can be done? If you don't have that, I think, let's not even talk about collaboration. Let's talk about something simple like, can I be an affiliate of yours? Can I just be an agent? Can I just sell some of your products? Or can I sell some of your services for you? And we can just take a referral or a commission. So it's not necessarily that everyone has to collaborate. It's nice if you can find the right collaboration partners, but it comes with its own complexities, like Mike has illustrated for us. So we believe that it's possible, but it does take time to really have that conversation with the partners or potential partners or collaboration community or groups that you want to do it with. And everyone must understand their roles, because you don't want someone to say, hey, you do all the work. Let me just come and, come in at the end where it's all nicely done and organized and all that. You don't want that. You want people to be with you from the beginning and work with you so that you can both enjoy it when you really get that result that you want. So, yeah. So then she says, okay, Charmaine comes back again. So she'll be looking for those who have similar values like me. But first you have to decide what values are important to you.
Yes, indeed. Yeah. And I think it's worth distinguishing between values in a business context and personal values, although I think what the world has shown us, particularly pandemic, is that we are all on an individual level able to discern what is important to us. At least I hope that many people are, just because it's been forced upon us. So let us take some kind of reflective lesson out of this and say that, yes, it really has to change our attitudes to what it is that we value. But ethical values, moral values may not play a dominant part in certain kinds of business collaborations. I mean, if it's just kind of like supply chain or whatever, but it certainly helps. I think if you start with that, you've got good foundations. Final point on that. And Charmaine says, is it like a leadership journey? And I think it is. So just the analogy I often try to use is that one that I used before. It is like you found a plot of land and you call all your neighbors together. This is very common. Gotong royong. We want to kind of put in the papaya tree, put in the sawi to grow, right? So if only one person is doing all that work, it seems unfair that everybody joins, in come harvest time. It's about mutuality. So the values are not about their personal values within their families or whatever of your neighbors, but the value of coming back to the definition of the word, with labor undertaken with, I don't know, commitment and love, I guess, if you want to get down to that kind of thing, right? So when you do that for mutual benefit, then everybody benefits. And I that's, anyway.
Yeah. So I think
Charmaine's got a few.
So she says, you mean like a startup journey? It's not a business school. It is a value-based enterprise. Leader focus.
Well, I like that. I mean, I like that. I think a lot of young people are increasingly doing that kind of thing. I mean, I'm not saying that this in itself is going to change the nature of global businesses or whatever, but in terms of finding meaning through self-employment, small businesses, doing the things that you love and are committed to will inevitably produce better results, because you certainly will get more job satisfaction out of these things than, I think. And that leads to an entirely more healthy ecosystem. Yeah. If that doesn't sound too idealistic.
Perhaps one of those things that we started off with, Jay, was that we talked about optimism, and part of it is when we want to collaborate with someone, we also believe that there is something positive out of it. And I think, like Charmaine, when you talk about people that you approached and they're not really interested, because they don't have that abundance mindset sometimes, because they think that, oh, if I work with you, oh my God, I'm getting less instead of getting more. Because the 1 + 1 isn't really 2. It could be 10, 50. I mean, as what Jay has shared, I mean, the community itself benefits so much, whether it is from a perspective of an NGO, perspective of a small business, or even the government. So what we're really talking about is way for people to start thinking, okay, if I want to do this, I need to be able to, number one, know that I can lead the project. I can propose. It may not be an easy journey. It never is an easy journey, right? I mean, bringing multi-parties together. But it is definitely doable. And as Jay has mentioned, some of the examples that he talked about just now, those are really, really doable. So there are many ways they can do this. Of course, from a business perspective, there are so many simpler collaborations that you can do. Like what I mentioned just now. If you're really not ready to collaborate with a person, just be an agent or a referral partner. All those kind of things are just slow ways to ease into that conversation. And perhaps if really those people don't want to work with you, maybe they're not the right people that, you should be working with. Maybe go and look for other people. So one of the things that I know is that if you really want to look for people to collaborate with, why don't you make a list of people that you really want people or businesses or even organizations that you want to work with or partner with, and approach them and talk to them. But at the end of the day, you must have a goal in mind, right? Like, why are you doing it together? Of course, a lot of people say yes for customers, for money, for revenue. I mean, that's true, but is there another purpose that's hidden in that collaboration that you want to have? So that, to me, is also one way of looking at it, because I feel that the concept of collaboration is very interesting. And if we can be really innovative with it, we can do so much good in this world. And that's always been my belief anyway. So that is where a lot of this comes also from my personal interest, that I really want to see how communities get better with collaboration, not worse. And Mike says it's about solving mutual problems.
Yeah.
this was the basis of our collaboration with 50 farmers in Vietnam. Mike, you definitely have to talk to Jay because both of you
Yes,
have lots in common.
I think
Hard to
so.
talk
I
about.
think so. I'd be delighted to. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So we are at the last 5 minutes. So if you have any burning question, please put them in the chat because we're ending soon. This has been a little unusual because this topic, I wouldn't call it heavy, but this topic really has so many tangents that we could go into. I wanted to talk about business point of view, right? But Jay, with his experience in, with the SDGs, right? With the SDGs and all that,
Yes.
he comes from a different perspective. So, which is something I really, really think is good because we're seeing from 2 points of view. But I also wanted to bring up a business and business kind of collaborations that I've seen. I mean, some examples, for instance, right? You have seen like BMW and Louis Vuitton. They came together to collaborate to promote the car and their luggage. I mean, for instance, or even things like Uber and Spotify came together to promote each of their services to each other's user base, or even UNICEF and Target as in the departmental store in the US. So they were selling kid-friendly fitness trackers to fund food packets for underprivileged children in another part of the world. So this is consider a different kind of unique kind of pairing or collaboration. So these are some of the things that are interesting. So if you really search for collaborations, even in Malaysia, there are plenty. And I think for Malaysia, I'm sure many of you know about Burger Lab. Burger Lab is really very good with collaborations. They collaborate with everyone in the food space and sometimes not even the food space at all. So if you're really interested, go and check out all their collaborations and go and find even BMW locally in Malaysia. They collaborated with four NGOs. They wrap their cars with the material or the craft that was made or woven or made or whatever. Yeah, it's very, very interesting kind of collaboration. So there are so many potential ways of doing it. So let's bring up Charmaine's comment. I also hope so. I dream we have a healthy ecosystem. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you thought so, Charmaine. Yeah.
Yeah. Because we also believe that the rising tide lifts all boats, right?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Because for people who don't want to collaborate, I mean, too bad. The world is moving towards collaboration, and the person just refuses to play in that field.
Well, I think what you were saying about the SDGs is also relevant, and I'm not going to take it off on a completely different direction. But things like climate change is going to, I think, severely affect. I mean, it's too late to kind of do anything to completely reverse it. But what we're trying to do is to mitigate the effects, and COP26 is kind of coming up. And that requires an entirely systems-based approach. It's not, yes, we can all do our recycling, but there is this tendency sometimes, I think, to say in terms of these things, it's a kind of shock sendiri kind of approach, It makes the giver feel good, Yeah, I bought 10 bungkus of nasi lemak and gave it to the kind of, what are they going to do for the next meal or the meal after that? And that's why collaboration is important. Those people who are in need of that nasi, the nasi or whatever, that kind of help, are your customers, tomorrow. As we've already said, pond life, right? So if you don't have a healthy pond, you're not going to see the frogs and the dragonflies and whatever. It is about looking at the ecosystem. And after all, we are all pond life in that grander scheme of things, So
yes,
let's learn to work together.
Yeah, that is a great way to end. Before I end, and this is what I promised earlier, right? So for those of you who stay with us till the end, I'm going to share with you a comprehensive resource that includes a framework and how to get started, plus checklist too. I love my checklist.
Yeah.
Yes. So it's a well-written page report that gives you ideas, especially if you're a startup. So I guess, Charmaine, this is probably something that you'll find useful. And it even includes recommendations and, risks and pros and cons and stuff like that. So I'm going to put it up here. You can just go to this place and get it. Otherwise, I just pop it in the comment so that all of you can click it and go direct. It's a PDF. So it's just, I found it very useful. Even I was looking through it. Yeah.
That's excellent.
And something that all of us here can just look through the document. We may not necessarily use everything because they're talking about how they put startups together with NGOs. I mean, they call them third sector, right?
Yes.
But here we call them NGOs or even social enterprises.
It's same kind of thing, really.
Yeah. Okay. So thank you very much, Jay. It has been a
great
conversation.
Fun.
Yeah, with examples and things that you have done. And how can people contact you?
Through
if
you.
They want to know. Through me.
Well, you're the kind of the and let's do
I'm the directory.
Collaborate. Well, if you don't mind, just forward it.
I don't mind.
To me.
So if anyone's interested.
Yes. And I'm always willing to have a conversation and bounce ideas, and the thing about the mom and pop shops and creation of an app. I mean, we did talk about it. I mean, I hope some group of young people come together and whatever, take it up and make some money, live a life and do some good, so that's fine.
Okay, so if anyone wants to get to know Jay, can let me know. And I'll connect you to Jay. Otherwise, you can look for him on LinkedIn, Jay Sharma, right?
Yes, I think it's Jay Sharma, and then it's got Cloud Spotter somewhere.
Yes. Okay, put the Cloud Spotter there. Okay, make sure you put Cloud Spotter because I think there are plenty of Jay Sharmas around.
Yes, too many, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think thank you, Mei Ching, and thank you, Hock Hui Kaur, Mr. Kaur.
Yeah. Thank you, all of you, for watching.
That's wonderful. Yeah, and great. Thanks, Mike. For the interaction and
Okay, so thank you, everyone. Why I changed it to a Thursday night was because everyone is out and about these days on a Saturday morning, so I decided let's do it at night. So if you wanted to go out on a Saturday, that's great. So right now I've changed it up to Thursday night. The next Facebook Live session that I'm going to have is about profitable freelancing. So for those of you who like this topic, I'm going to have a special guest who has been helping freelancers for at least 12 years do it profitably. So don't miss that. And make sure if you like this, please follow our page. And you're watching this on YouTube, please give us a like and subscribe and thumbs up and hit the notification button, whatever it is that it takes for you to get notified when we go live. So thank you once more, everyone. Have a very good evening, and I will see you again 2 weeks from now.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Krista.